Hello and welcome to this microfocus ZENworks Service Desk video tutorial discussing the migration from version 7.4 Appliance to version 8.0 Service Desk Appliance. Some of the things we'll cover is the test and upgrade strategies, the pre and post tasks including backup and restore, system requirements. We'll talk a little bit about the Appliance Administration Console and its changes going from 7.4 to 8.0. We'll also have a demonstration going from 7.4 Appliance to version 8.0, debug and login information, resources, and tips. Some test and upgrade strategy reminders. Remember that Service Desk version 8 supports the appliance model only. Virtual machine appliances have embedded databases pre-configured, but you can still use external databases. The upgrade is N-1 or N-2 version increments, meaning Service Desk supports no more than 2 versions behind the latest version. That would include version 7.4 and 7.5. If it's older than 7.4, then you'll have to do a couple of increments. Verify the system and database requirements. System files and database schema are upgraded with each upgrade iteration. The upgrade method is side-by-side. And the upgrade process for version 7.4 would either be an OS with 7.4 installed on it to a version 8.0 appliance, or a version 7.4 appliance to an 8.0 appliance. And then pre and post upgrade tasks must be completed. And if using that external database during the migration, since it automatically connects to the internal database, you'll have to disconnect through the administration console, configure the external database to upgrade the schema. A couple more reminders is verify your checksum on all downloaded files from the support page. Verify time sync between servers in the database. Upgrade servers on the same subnets with fast connections to the database. File directory structures do change between some versions, and we have that documented. Version 8 requires an additional virtual storage disk that we refer to as VA storage or virtual appliance storage. Have the version 8 licenses available if you've changed between ITIL and standard versions. Configure the new features like the new end user portal, join proxy and store, and etc. Update your company's Service Desk documentation, and most importantly, have a backup plan. Pre-install and upgrade backup tasks. If your external database is not supported on version 8.0, be sure to upgrade the database prior to migrating to version 8.0 of Service Desk. Backup the Service Desk server and database. Copy system customization files and settings. That would include the Tomcat server, Web XML, and Server XML, where ports and session timeouts reside. Java, if those were modified, grab the Catalina properties file. And export external SSL certificate keys if applicable. Identify external system configurations like OpenID, single sign-on, two-form factor authentication, etc. Identify the network configurations, the IP and DNS settings, and the NTP settings. And then document the screenshots of the working Service Desk configurations like email and LDAP, ZENworks and AMI. Some of these are fire and forget type settings, and it's good to have these documented in your corporate documentation. Install and upgrade tasks would be to turn off the Service Desk version 7.4 services on the appliance. And if using an external database, leave the database running so that it upgrades the schema. Open the virtual server on the Hypervisor. That would be version 8.0. Create a VA storage on the version 8.0 appliance. Power up the version 8.0 appliance. Install with the required settings and using a temporary IP address. Open the administration console and migrate the 7.4 system on port 9443. Remember, the customization files will be overwritten during the upgrade. So see the Service Desk installation documentation for the location of these files. They do vary between versions. Post-upgrade and restore tasks. Afterwards, you would decommission the version 7.4 appliance server. You'd copy the saved lifetime folder to the VA storage directory on version 8.0. reconfigure original network IP and DNS and NTP settings, register the online updates channel, and then some conditional settings. If you modified those CSS files or the Catalina properties file for Java or the session timeouts or default ports, make sure that you restore those changes. Don't overwrite the files, but restore the changes. Import any external certificates if necessary. And if you've changed your licensing, go ahead and enter the new licensing. A couple more upgrade and restore tasks. Verify the external system communications, that your database connection is there, the email configuration test, the LDAP tests, AMI and ZENworks tests. Check your OpenID, your single sign-on, and password self-service if they're configured in Service Desk. And then you may have other system communications like two-form factor authentication or federation connections. Restart the Service Desk version 8.0 appliance services. Verify time sync between the servers. Back up the new Service Desk version 8 and its components. And then update the company's Service Desk system configuration documentation with the new configurations you've applied for this new version. We're going from version 7.4 to 8.0, so it's going to be a single jump. But should you be on an older version than 7.4, the next few tables will help you in your jumps going from older versions to the latest version 8.0. This shows the upgrade OS and the method, and remember you can only go in steps of 2. This one shows the system requirements for the server OS. Notice versions 7.5 and 8.0 are appliance only. The appliance is a 64-bit virtual machine. This shows the database requirements. Do you have an external database? You'd need to stay in compliance with these database versions. Here's the system requirements for the hypervisor. Notice in version 7.5 we included the Zen on Celeste, and in 8.0 we added the support for Microsoft Hyper-V. And then system requirements for RAM disk and CPU cores. Again, going from 7.4 to 8.0, we're going to increase our RAM. We're going to increase our disk space with that additional v8 storage, and our CPU cores will stay the same. Then finally, the file customizations. You can see going from 7.4 to 8.0, we changed the directory for the lifetime because we're using that v8 storage. We also changed from the Catalina properties file to the servicedesk.server file. The Appliance Administration Console in version 7.4, you'd see at the console itself for the appliance, you'd see two options, the appliance or the Micro Focus Service Desk services. And you'd basically have, for the Service Desk services, you'd have these options, and then you'd have these options for the appliance management. Well, this all changed in version 7.5 and rolling into 8.0. We now do it through a web browser. And when you're done with your install, you'll basically see this screen where it directs you to port 9443 on the server. Once you log into 9443 on the server, you'll then see this particular administration console for version 8.0. Logged in as SD admin, you have these functions for the appliance, and you can modify these functions for the ZENworks Service Desk appliance. So the top is for the OS and the bottom is for ZENworks Service Desk. If you log in as root, you have some additional items you can work with, which is a network, time, storage, and firewall. Let's do our demonstration going from version 7.4 appliance to 8.0 appliance. Let's run through the appliance migration from version 7.4 to version 8.0. Here's our appliance. We can see we have eDirectory groups configured and Active Directory groups configured. And our Service Desk registration is configured to version 7.4 as well. We have also downloaded Service Desk 8.0 to save some time. Let's log into our zone. We can see we have some customers and users. Our banners and our images are all changed and customized. We have our email set up. We have our licenses, which show that we're on 7.4. We can also tell that we're on an ITIL version and not the standard version because we have more than just incident roles here. Our database, you can see, is internal. The LDAP has both eDirectory and Active Directory configured. Easily test those. You can see that we have Amy configured and we have ZENworks configured. We also have the store configured. Should we go to the customer site, we can see the store. We have items in the store. Okay, let's go ahead and log out. We'll go to our appliance and we'll stop the services. We want to make sure the database stays running. Next, we'll go over to our version 8.0 appliance. We will add our additional disk. Has to be 40 gigs or more. We'll make it 60. Make the other appropriate changes. We'll call this VA storage. Select OK. Now we can power up this appliance and we'll configure it with a temporary IP address. While that's coming up, let's bring up WinSCP. And we'll copy over the lifetime. And we'll go out to opt, Novell, NSD Service Desk. And we want to get our banners that we customized. They'll be under the images custom. We'll just copy the whole thing over. You can see that those have more recent dates. And then the CSS files. You can see we've changed a couple of these. So we want to make sure we preserve those changes by getting them and comparing them after the install. And then if we go to server conf, we can get our Catalina properties, our server XML, and our web XML. As we've copied our different settings for each of our configurations, email, our licensing, database configuration, LDAP configuration, Amy and ZENworks configurations, and store configurations as well. And then also on the eDirectory groups and the Active Directory groups and the zone for Service Desk. We've completed that for our documentation, so we know what those configurations were. We can then close this. We're going to start configuring Service Desk 8.0. We'll accept the license agreement. We'll put in our root password and our SD admin password. This is the Service Desk administrator for that Service Desk administration console we're talking about, which is new in 7.5 and 8.0. We'll give it a ZSD 8.0. DNS name so that we can distinguish it between the 7.4 server. And we'll give it an IP address of 80. Any other optional DNS or DNS domain search functions can be configured. It's configuring the network. It'll now prompt us for that disk. If it doesn't see the disk, it'll give us a prompt and say, please shut down, create a virtual storage disk, and start again. In this case, it found it. See the 60 gig. You can set the file system type as you need to and hit configure. We now have the Service Desk Appliance up and running on IP80 port 9443. So let's go to our browser. Log in as SD admin. Now since we're going from 7.4 to 8.0, we're going to hit Migrate. Put in the IP address of our 7.4 server and the root password and select Migrate. You can see migration is in progress. And now migration is complete. We can then go to the classic ZENworks Service Desk to upgrade the schema. We'll go ahead and select Edit here. Notice it filled in all the database stuff. Should you have an external database, you would specify it. Put in the necessary configurations. Hit Test to see if you can connect. Once you can connect, you can go to Advanced. Then you can do your upgrade. It prompts you to make sure you're backed up. You can then select Upgrade. And now it'll upgrade the schema so that your version 8 internal database has all the information and the schema is updated. And it's done. By selecting Close, it goes to your normal Service Desk URL. Log in with the LDAP user. We can see our LDAP's working. We see our graphics aren't there because we haven't transferred those over yet. But we can see that our licenses is version 8.0. Our database has been completed successfully. This will stay here until we restart services. LDAP is configured. We have Amy. We have ZENworks. We're looking pretty good. If we go to Customer, the store is there. Let's go ahead and do some maintenance now. Go to our WinSCP. We now copy our lifetime folder over. Our images. Banners you can overwrite. Okay, we have new banners in there. Quick way to tell. Just to refresh. We got our banners back. The CSS files, though, you cannot. You want to take the changes that are in here and move them over. And same with the server and web XML and the Catalina properties. Those changes for the Catalina properties will go into the Service Desk Services file. Right here, this file. For the most part, we're pretty much set. We've upgraded. Now we can do the minor tweaks. We'll log back into our administration console so that we can make some changes. We have to log in actually as root so we can get to the network. So let's go root, log in. We'll go to our network. Our original IP address was 192.168 1.74. So we'll modify that. Our ETH0, change this to 74. And then we're going to change this to ZSD and hit OK. OK, we will need, the connections will be reset, so we'll need to be rebooted. Our appliance. There we go. And we have to power down our first 7.4 appliance. 6.2. That'll free up that IP. That's up. Let's see if we can get connect. Port 9443. Now we can log in as SD admin. We now have the identity, the network identity. Next we want to change our CSS, which means we'll need to log into our classic. Remember we had a gray banner at the top. We got our pictures back. Let's go into setup. Customize in our CSS. So if we then go over to our CSS file, we don't want to really deal with the default, we want to deal with this one. So let's edit this one. And we can see they're pretty simple changes. We'll go to the first one, we'll change it to 9999 AAAA, and the submenu is BBBB. So we'll go and then we had 7, 6, and 5. 7, 6, 5, and then the text color is 4s. We'll save that. Notice our colors came back. Now again, if we do check our store is still there. And that takes care of the adjustments we had in our service desk. We've now been upgraded to 8.0 and everything intact. Now we can configure new features between 7.5 and 8.0 that were introduced. Microfocus, ZENworks Service Desk Debug and Log Locations. You can reference TID 7017045 if you want to set it in debug mode. If you need to restart, you can use the Restart Service button in the administration console on version 8.0, or you can run the command line for the systemctl restart lifetime service. To look at the lifetime and service desk service logs, check out TID 7018199. You can export logs either via the Service Desk Console Reports, going to Log and then Export button. This not only gives the logs, but it also gives environment details. So this is the best way to export logs. You can also go to the Administration Console and go to Logs and look at the logs or export or download them from there. And then the Appliance, version 7.5 and above, the logs are located on VA Storage Lifetime Logs. There are two Microfocus ZENworks Service Desk cookbooks, version 7, TID 7021281, and version 8, TID 7023510. These have links and references if you're upgrading, migrating, installing, looking for videos on how to. It has those references in both of these TIDs for those supported versions. Some other Service Desk resources are the ZENworks Service Desk documentation site, the public forums, the YouTube channel, and the ideas portal, where we get some of our best ideas coming from you to implement into the product. Some tips we have for the new end user portal. Be sure to refresh your browser, Control F5, the first time after the initial login, so that all the coding for those tiles are refreshed. The new end user portal tile URL points to HTTPS Service Desk Server Service Desk if you want to take advantage of the new customizations and Angular coding. Customization for the end user portal is under Setup, Customized, New End User Portal tab. You can change what the customer sees, the banners, and the color scheme. A summary of this presentation: we covered test and upgrade strategy, pre and post upgrade tasks, system requirements, a little bit on the Appliance Administration Console, Appliance Migration demonstration going from version 7.4 Appliance to version 8.0, debug and login information, resources, and tips. We hope this clears up some questions and gives a visual of what you can expect when upgrading to Micro Focus ZENworks Service Desk 8.0. This concludes this training video on migrating from Micro Focus ZENworks Service Desk 7.4 Appliance to version 8.0.